might think food is the most important essential, but it's our third essential. And honestly, people can go entire multi-day trips without food.
Hi, I'm starting late.
We were just going over the three things that we think are the most important when you backpack, and that's a way to stay warm, a container for water, and food. So a way to stay warm is the most important, we were saying, because without it you won't be able to hydrate properly or eat, and you need to just stay warm to keep going. Other places where it's tropical or something, staying cool may be the ticket to keep going, but around here it's staying warm. We've got a lot of water, so it is possible to go from creek to creek without drinking, without carrying water with you, but there's too many things that can happen, too many reasons to need a container for water, especially if you're camping, you want to be able to bring water to your camp for cooking and things like that. So the most important thing I think we bring besides a way to stay warm is water. And then the third essential, food, may seem like it's the most important essential, but people do go entire multi-day trips without it. Going without food can lead to injury, often does. Your muscles are what hold joints in place with the tendons, and if those muscles get fatigued beyond the point where they're used to being tired, they can start to fail, and you can get things like dislocated, or you can roll an ankle, or your knee injuries. You can get different injuries if you're not eating right and keeping those muscles strong while you're hiking. Anytime you're hiking and you start to get tired or a little bit annoyed, or if you feel like you kind of wish you were on the couch at home, those are all signs that you need to be eating and making yourself strong again. So it's a good time just to sit down and take time to go through your pack, and you've got food ready to go. Well, let's go ahead and get into what we do carry and how we do pack. There's several different ways to pack. This is actually Mount Eleanor, and that is Lake Cushman from Mount Eleanor. So let's see if we can get into it. Steph, can you kind of click me over to the next shot?
From here?
Yeah. And click on the right side.
I don't see it early.
It'll be right down there. There you go. Okay. So, are we there? So there's lots of different styles to pack, and lots of different ways to pack. This is a hard external frame pack. Stephanie doesn't really like to carry it so much because it's got hard points on it that rub a little bit, I think. But it's good for carrying a lot of weight. Here she had a 0-degree sleeping bag that weighed 6.5 pounds, which is not cutting edge by far. But she wanted the warm sleeping bag, and at the time that was what we had. She's got everything for herself in there, her own cook system, her own clothes, and we had to have a bear canister for that trip, so she threw the bear canister right on top. Something like that. Figure this one out for sure now. Okay, so a way to stay warm is the first essential. This is on Mount Rose when there was a snowstorm that was pretty bad, so I took shelter there and I just kind of dug out a little shelter and was able to hang out there for a little while. It quit blowing so bad, but it was more for the shot than anything else, I'd say. Just for fun. Just enjoying nature. If we can go to the next one there, Steph. I'll try to see if I can remember all the way to the right.
I'm not that one way. There. Jeez.
Okay, good. All the way to the right. All the way right there. Click. And then just leave it there. Okay. So this is how I sleep with no pad, no sleeping bag, or no tent. Whenever I go out, I'll just fill up a couple trash bags with debris. I usually have a pair of gloves that I bring, that I put on that I don't have in that picture. It makes it a little faster and I don't have to think as much. So this was actually a temporary shelter that I set up while we were cooking. It was cold when we got to camp. This is a wind sod with the brush. You can use snow or sand or anything to keep the wind from coming up under it and to kind of hold it into place. So we sat on the pad and kind of enjoyed the fire, and the wind never kicked up, and it was so nice I wound up just sleeping right there in front of the fire without my sleeping bag. And that was one of the trips that kind of got me started thinking that maybe I can go without a sleeping bag and things like that, which would add me some freedoms. So this is one where I went 10 miles in the staircase, kind of the same thing with the Mylar blanket, and I coupled it with plastic. Mylar's fragile, but when you put it with plastic, and then I put little rocks in here and tied them with cordage, and it's virtually indestructible. It won't shred in very high winds. And then these are just kind of trash bags that I dropped down and wind sodded. That's a sheet of plastic though. It's about a 2 mil sheet of plastic. That's where this worked at home. But we got the projector last night. We just put this all together today. So there you can see I've got the trash bags to sleep on, the Mylar blanket, and then the Mylar shelter. And also on my way to camp, I had just seen 2 bears before I got here. And on the way to camp there was also a big log down, and it was raining the whole time. So whenever I got there, I took note of that log, and I would have been able to, if my shelter would have somehow blown away, I could have taken shelter under that log, but I had the Mylar blanket, and I was sleeping on this high bed of debris, and I sleep in my boots. I loosen the laces so they can kind of breathe and I'll be more comfortable. I sleep in my raining gear and all my clothes under the Mylar blanket. It saves me a sleeping bag, and it saves me a pad, and most of all, it gives me confidence when I'm out someplace. It just gives me a lot of confidence that if something happens to my pad or my sleeping bag or my shelter, I know it's almost extra. And so if I had a hammock and I'm camping with a hammock and I don't really have maybe I have an under quilt and no pad, I know that I've got, if my hammock rips in half, I still have this technology, if you want to call it that, to fall back on. And I'm not going to be stuck in the mountains. If I'm going over Panhandle Gap around Rainier and it's nothing but snow, I know that I hopefully will have the clothing I need, and I don't need to rely on my sleeping bag as much to hopefully.
How comfortable is it sleeping on the debris?
It's more comfortable than you would think. I'd say the most uncomfortable thing is when rain hits me in the face and when wind blows up my back. So I try to keep my jackets tight and keep any air from getting up in my back, because that's where the discomfort comes. But you'd be surprised you can really get kind of comfortable on that plastic.
And the Mylar blanket, is that the emergency blankets?
Mm-hmm. They weigh 2 ounces. So if I can replace my sleeping bag, which isn't heavy, I have a 1 pound sleeping bag, but that's smaller, the 2 blankets. And for things like day hikes where I may be spending the night, but I may be able to make it out in one day, it gives me a lot of confidence to know that I can be back up in there. And if something does happen, I do run out of time or energy or whatever, I can make a makeshift little place to sleep under a log or next to a tree pretty easily, and the confidence it gives me is the best. Okay, so then water is our next essential after way to stay warm. So I like this Coughlin's Universal Bottle Carrier. It comes long, and they expect you to kind of wear it, I guess, kind of like a purse or something, but I shorten it up so that I'm able to keep it close to my body. And then that way, it's not so much that it keeps it warm. It does keep it warm in the winter time, and more than anything, in the winter time, it can get wet when you refill it. So people think it's going to be a great idea because they keep it under their rain jacket in the what it's best for is a lot of things. If I do have trouble, I can fill my pockets full of food, and I can put my warm clothes on that act as my sleeping bag basically. I can put all my warm clothes on in this bottle, and I can grab food, and I can move, I can keep going, and I don't need to even have anything. I could essentially backpack a very long time with a warm jacket and some food in my pockets in this bottle.
What do you think of the camels?
The bladders.
Yeah.
Those are great. The thing that happens with those is that people, they drink what's in there. And if you have enough to get you all the way to camp and then refill it, that's great. But if you run out on the trail, it's so much effort to pull it out of your pack and then refill it and get it back into your pack. I should probably start unpacking these packs because we got a lot to go through, and you'll see how the way we pack, we never have to get into the tops. Everything we need is either in our pockets, in these pockets, the side pockets, and there's some things that we may need that we keep in the back. Nothing we ever get into the main pocket. It takes too long, and if you can avoid it, it keeps from having to mess with a lot of things. And you really don't need anything more for hiking than what you can carry in your pockets and around a little bit. Here, let's go ahead and skip and see if we've got another picture here. Okay, food. Food is our last essential. So
You
that's
look like you took a bite out of that.
yeah, this is my climbing partner, Shane. We do most of our hikes with each other, so then see if there's another one next time. I think that's just gonna be okay. So let's get into it here.
I was on a phone call, my husband's on the way, so you have one more.
That's great.
Do you, up in the Olympics, do you purify your water?
I do, but I hike with people who don't. And I would say, if you ever in a situation where you're questioning it, don't even worry about
Well,
it.
yeah, it's like, when they're running the rivers, we're careful when we get it, but unless it's by a lake or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's only certain places I would, like by Lena Lake, where there's a lot of people who camp, things like that. It's kind of common sense where, that's a good point, because the water here, we're really lucky and blessed to live in a place with such beautiful, clean water. And it's just crystal clear. We were out in rowboat the other day, and we could see starfish on the bottom of the canal. It was amazing. So, okay, well, we're going to start out with the most simple and basic approach to hiking or backpacking. On the outside, I've got a pad, not for really any reason. I'm not going to need to pull this off for these. What we did is we geared up for a hike where we would, typical Washington hike, you're not really expecting rain, but you're probably going to get a little bit of rain. Somewhere throughout your hike, somewhere while you're camping, things like that. It's just going to rain off and on. So, and we don't let the rain stop us or the weather. You can't. You just got to go out and try and enjoy yourself, and the more you do, the better you'll get at it. So everything that's on the outside of the pack is double tied. So this is double tied on. It doesn't even need to come off for this demo here. First I'll go with what we will be wearing. Stephanie and I would both be wearing the same thing, and everybody I hike with, I recommend wears pretty much what we wear. This is really basic, so I'm going to go through it really quickly. Okay, well, I wear synthetic boxers. I got those, but you don't need to see those.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay,
It's okay, leave her alone.
so the shirt that we wear is we don't wear any cotton. Cotton, and maybe on a hot day, cotton can be nice because you can get it wet and it can stay with you for a while. But that's the same reason you don't want it, is because around here, the cold is what we want to avoid. We want to really be as warm as you can all the time out here. It's just makes things nicer. So this is a polyester shirt. It'll dry quickly. Cotton will weigh 20 times more when it's wet. I don't know exactly. Weighs a ton more when it's wet, and it can freeze. It just sucks a lot of popular right now is the zip-off pants. I like these soft shell pants. They block a little more wind, and these are actually a little lighter. They're made by OR, but Go Light makes some zip-off pants that are just as light, 9 ounces. So in my pockets here, as part of my trail food. So this is the system I would carry here. I won't get into footwear because everybody's different. I like heavy socks and Gore-Tex boots. Steph likes lightweight footwear with the light socks and the low top. She doesn't get into as extreme activities and things that I do. And off trail, I wouldn't want low top. I'm in places where I can't see my feet. Sometimes I'm kicking rocks with one foot into the other, and I don't want to smash an ankle with a rock or something. A lot of times I'm by myself, so I don't have trouble lifting my feet. People say it's for every pound on your foot, it's 6 pounds in your back. But I don't see it. It doesn't bother me. So I prefer heavier footwear, and that's just me. And people can debate it all day with me. So in my pockets, I've got this pocket I want to be careful with because I've got my map. But I've also got my sandwich. I've got a peanut butter and honey sandwich in this pocket. And then I've got a peanut butter and honey sandwich in this pocket. That's going to be some of my trail food. That'll get me a good ways down the trail. And then in this pocket is all the things I'm going to need while I'm hiking that I might need. I've got some Propel because when I purify water, I like to use tablets because it takes up less space. So I've got my purification tablets. And then the Propel will actually not only take the taste of the iodine, I call it iodine, but it's a chemical that they call iodine tablets. It's what you buy, the little tablets that turn your water yellow, and then you've got the ones that turn it white. Well, this will actually turn the water white and make it taste better, so I like the Propel. Also in here, I've got a toothbrush. It's kind of like, it got the gel.